everyone, Adam here, So Wizard Podcast. I got another interview for you today. I got to sit down with documentary filmmaker Darcy Weir. If the name sounds familiar, I mean, he's done a ton of documentaries. If his name sounds familiar through So Wizard Podcast, it's because we talked to Darcy a little bit ago about a UFO documentary that he did involving UFO sightings near volcano eruptions. Very interesting guy, very knowledgeable. The amount of information, in this case, we talk about Bitcoin. The amount of information he has on the topics that he researches just off the top of his head is incredible. I mean, he's just giving information and he's not referring to notes or anything, and it's awesome. I love talking to this guy. I hope to do it again in the future. His latest movie, The Bitcoin Field Guide, is available now on VOD. And he says at the end of this interview, if you're in the States, you can watch it on Tubi TV, which is a ad-based subscription service, so you can watch it for absolutely no money. And it's really worth checking out, even if you're not a cryptocurrency person. It's actually almost better that way because this is a very good crash course in exactly what is going on in the world of crypto, how it works, why it came about, and all of that. So enjoy the conversation. Hey everyone, Adam here, So Wizard Podcast. I'm sitting down with Darcy Weir to talk about his newest documentary, The Bitcoin Field Guide. How you doing, Darcy?
I'm good, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for coming on. We talked before about your volcanic UFO documentary, sightings near volcanoes, which I thought was really interesting. So happy to have you back, even though it's a totally different topic.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
So if people haven't figured out by the name, the Bitcoin Field Guide is obviously about cryptocurrency. Sorry, we talked for like 2 seconds before I press record, and we were kind of talking about how a lot of people have a vague understanding of cryptocurrency, but not a great one. So that seems like a good point to jump off on.
Yeah, I mean, this documentary is really built to educate. It's a way for somebody who's never even looked into crypto before to understand a little bit about everything that's going on in crypto as of now, to date. So, we cover what blockchain technology is and how that's really changing the digital landscape for the internet, because, since the year 2000, there was a crash, the internet bubble burst, and then we've just been building up since then. And now everything is run over the internet. I mean, just the fact that we can have this HD conversation online is a testament to the fact that the internet's grown so much. We're in the midst of this blockchain revolution right now, and everything's being upgraded to use blockchain technology because it's more secure, it's faster, it's efficient, and it offers all kinds of benefits that our standard internet sort of web 1.0 can't really provide without the advent of blockchain technology. And I think, just given that information, we jump off from there in the documentary and talk about Bitcoin. We talk about what traditional currency is and the history of traditional currency, which has been a very rocky history. I think we've probably even traded with rocks at one point, no pun intended. But we're headed for a bit of a shock with the US dollar, I think. Given that the US dollar has really depreciated in its value since the 1920s, let's say, what you could buy with one crisp US dollar bill is very different from what you can buy with one US dollar now. The strength of the dollar, the dollar as we speak right now is actually rallying. And that's just due to the fact that the whole world's economies are on the fringe of collapse, kind of, post-COVID and during this high inflationary time. So people are running back to the US dollar. people are thinking that that's a safe haven. But the prediction is in this documentary that it's not going to stay king for forever. And in fact, the Federal Reserve, or a reserve currency, has always switched up every 80 years or so. And the US dollar is kind of running that course right now. So cryptocurrency is logically the next step in what would be a new stable coin, a new coin that, and there's a case to be made that maybe the US will create a stable coin in time to transition to off of the back of their dying fiat currency. A lot of the fiat currencies around the world are dying. And countries may adopt a completely different crypto standard to stabilize their economy and trade on something that's a little bit more reliable. You're looking, some countries in Africa are looking at taking Cardano, which is a blockchain-based cryptocurrency. Some countries were looking at one point at taking Libra, which was Facebook's blockchain technology cryptocurrency project. But that really got ixnayed because the Fed was threatened by the idea of Facebook releasing their own banking system and, rising in supremacy, their own blockchain crypto that could displace the US dollar. So that they campaigned against that quite fervently 3 years ago to destroy it. And they did a good job, and Facebook really has stepped back at this point. I think they've even gotten they created a project called Novi Wallet, and that just got completely trashed as well. And I think Facebook is just going to watch the world go up in flames in terms of what's happening with the dollar, inflation, and all that stuff. And maybe at a later time, once there's more government regulation and clarity on what is allowed in the cryptocurrency landscape, they'll probably then jump in and release their project, I think.
Maybe yeah, it does feel like they're just kind of waiting for their time.
Yeah.
So you have a lot there to unpack. And what I liked about your documentary was that it did go in a very logical order, as you were saying, where first you talk about blockchain. Like, you can't really talk about cryptocurrency without saying, how does it work? Because if I talk to, my parents about cryptocurrency, they think it's digital money. Like, you're just buying it and it could disappear, just like you pay $1.99 for a song on iTunes. They think it's kind of the same thing. So that I thought was a really interesting take. And I think that's also tied to NFTs, there was just a big NFT craze.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing people have to keep in mind when they look at something like Bitcoin is that it's a deflationary technology. It's a mode. It's kind of, right now, it's a medium for fiat currency, so you can transfer your wealth from one place to another without the need of a bank, but you would need an exchange or a wallet. You can use a digital wallet or a hardware wallet like Ledger, and if somebody else has a Ledger device, you can transfer your money right from yourself from your wallet to their wallet. And the blockchain, the Bitcoin itself, settles that transaction and recodes how much Bitcoin is going to be named to this new person in their wallet. So you're really cutting out the middleman, which is the banks, and the banks are threatened big time by cryptocurrency. They even know that the dollar is, I think they are worried that the dollar is doomed as well. And one of the things that makes Bitcoin so attractive as a deflationary currency is that it has a finite amount. You can take, so originally there was only supposed to be 21 million Bitcoin. There's been a bunch lost since its inception. So really the circulating supply could only ever be 18 million at this point. So, look at how many people in the world there are right now today. There's something like 7 trillion. And is it 7 trillion?
I'm not sure.
Or 7 billion. It's 7 billion. My bad. So if you look at that number and you try to divide every Bitcoin out there, you understand that demand causes the rise of the value in Bitcoin, because as more people learn about it, more people feel that it offers better value than something like the US dollar or other investment assets, they will on-ramp their fiat into it, and they'll either save it there or they might trade. And that's how some people get into these other altcoins. Once they get into Bitcoin, that's an on-ramp into the greater crypto trading market. And, if you look at the US dollar, a highly inflationary asset or currency, you're looking at something that's been printed into infinity. And that's why over COVID, we just printed money like gangbusters to try and save businesses and individuals. But, free market capitalist society, you usually shouldn't bail everybody out. You should let the losers lose and let the winners win. What happens when you just print like this, like crazy, is you're letting everybody artificially win in the short term, but overall, the economy is going to lose and the dollar is going to lose in value because of all this money that's now circulating the system. You're depreciating the value of the dollar, therefore. So NFTs, to your question, they are a new way of, let's say, Apple, right? Apple created the DRM technology that everybody maybe loves or hates these days when it comes to artists' music. And that digital rights management is built into their platform when selling the music. But a non-fungible token, that is a blockchain technology that allows you to do digital rights management into a song, a picture, or a piece of art, like a graphic, a movie, a podcast. I mean, you could technically, if they figure it out, these podcasts could become NFTs. They could become rare and valuable because only one owner at a time can possess that NFT. And it's completely unique because everything is coded into that non-fungible token as to when it was created, who it's owned by, and how it was created, so on and so forth. So it's built into that piece of media. So non-fungible tokens right now are kind of a craze, yeah. And I never really got into it. I mean, I did waste my money on a few NFTs during the craze, but you learn from that. And essentially what this whole craze is about is a bunch of artists created some JPEGs. They created their digital art. They turned it into an NFT that coded when it was created, who was created by, who owns it, and then it got sold. And your name, Adam, will then be coded into the blockchain, who owns this now. And there's value in that technology, but it needs to evolve from here so that it's not as easy to copyright it. I mean, there's platforms like OpenSea that have had major problems with people, basically scam artists just doing a screenshot of a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk and re-uploading it, and then somebody thinking that's the authentic one and buying it, and really they've just got a duplicate that they've spent a bunch of ETH, right? So that is a problem, and I think just like what happened in the dot-com boom of 2000, I mentioned earlier in this conversation, we're going to see an evolution of blockchain technology, NFTs. All this stuff is going to get more efficient, more accurate, better created, better designed, and more people are going to come to it and play in this space.
It is very interesting because it does feel like it's easy to kind of dismiss, like the thing you just said, where, okay, you spent 5,000 Ethereum on a JPEG, and I can have a copy of that JPEG, and I'm enjoying it just as much as you looking at it. But I think the important thing to point out, like you kind of just did, is that it's in its infancy. We're just learning how to implement this stuff.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of companies that are taking notice of this. I mean, Theta is a blockchain-based video platform that was started by the creators of YouTube. And we see how big YouTube has become, right?
Yeah.
They're essentially making a decentralized, YouTube of the future that will be all blockchain based. And I think there's going to be some things that will need to be tweaked here and there. The thing about YouTube is that it's becoming a curated platform. It used to be you could throw up anything and everything, right? It was a wild west of a video platform, and you had all kinds of hate speech. You had all kinds of, things that you wouldn't want your child to log in and see, violent things, whatever, right? But they slowly have reined that in, and they have curated the platform. They've kicked certain folks off, kind of did a pivot on the freedom of speech with their algorithm, and there was lots of people shadow banned and all that kind of thing, right? And Theta is kind of like restarting that, but I think all these sort of blockchain technologies are going to start experimentally until they get synthesized and better designed.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's amazing how much of this is interconnected with not just Bitcoin but cryptocurrency, and how prevalent. And I feel like a lot more people are starting to get educated on it just in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, it's really we're still at the precipice of this all taking off, and right now we're actually going through a cryptocurrency market correction. Everything's correcting. The S&P 500 is down, the Nasdaq is down, and Bitcoin is down. And
yeah, that is something I wanted to ask, because your documentary is coming out, or came out at the perfect time, because I mean, crypto took a massive hit. But I think a lot of people who are into crypto are just as interested, because it's just like you said with the stock market being down. The stock market taking a massive hit, and investor sees that as opportunity, not a time to despair. Do you feel like it's kind of the same? Is it because of the same reasons, and is it the same opportunities? And I know you're not here to give people investing advice, but is it kind of the same idea as the stock market compared to the crypto market?
Yeah, it's definitely not financial advice in any way. This is just educational. But what I'll say is that we're at a very different time, because, when I first started making this documentary, it was post 2017 all-time high of Bitcoin. And the crash that ensued after that was in January of 2018. So I literally started making the documentary in 2018, right after the crash, interviewing, all these business people. And I was asking them, what's your sentiment about Bitcoin, what its value would be, the end of 2018 or the end of 2019, whatever. And they were all bullish. They all saw the value in it because of the same reasons I told you earlier on, what makes Bitcoin valuable, what makes it interesting. And they saw that then, and those same things have not changed. The same has not changed for the US dollar. Cash is trash. That's the saying. And other fiat currencies too. I mean, the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, you name it, they're all in jeopardy right now because they're just fiat currencies. They're based off of the gross domestic product, the value, the perceived value that a country can yield for their dollar. And all countries are in trouble right now because, we're headed for a recession. And I don't know if buying Bitcoin right now or buying another cryptocurrency is a good idea. I think we still have a long way to go, technically, till there's a bottom in. And until inflation kind of gets under control, which the Fed is going to be probably acting on some kind of rate hike or talking about acting on a rate hike this week to address the crazy CPI numbers that came out on Friday last week. We still have some ways to go. And so the stock market could depreciate more from here, and cryptocurrency market could as well. The interesting thing, the correlation you can also look at with all these different cryptocurrencies that are out there that are not Bitcoin, people call them altcoins, they could be viewed as another security. And I think there's going to be more legal sort of clarity on that coming out of the Fed eventually. Because a security is where you hold a piece, like as an investor, you're buying a stock, you're kind of buying a chunk of a company's worth, right? And as that company's perceived worth goes up, then your investment goes up and that stock rallies, right? If the stock starts dropping, it's because the perceived value of that security is going down. Same thing is with cryptocurrency. You're technically, maybe that company is just a startup and they're not at this point where they're putting their security on the stock exchange, which is a lot harder to get onto. So they create a cryptocurrency and that creates investment interest, and that's basically like you're kind of investing in a startup and the perceived value of that startup if it continues to rally, if it continues to become powerful. So people buy Cardano and they think Cardano is going to be another Ethereum network. People buy Ethereum, they think it's going to be like, Ethereum is nicknamed the world computer. They think it's going to be like the next iOS of the world for developing applications on, and it is becoming a really popular place to build applications. They need to upgrade the network first before it becomes more efficient and more attractive to build on it. But it is the number one place that a lot of these blockchain dApps, digital applications, are being built on.
So we've talked about the recession that, everyone's feeling at this point. I think we're in we're still in the very early stages, like where there's no light at the end of the tunnel for a long time. And it hit the stock market. The value of the dollar and most nations' currencies at this point are dropping because we just keep printing. Everyone's printing. And you mentioned that Bitcoin is fixed where there's around like 18 million left because, loss and stuff like that. What does stop somebody, because somebody programmed this in the first place, what stops somebody from reprogramming and saying like, okay, now there's 38 million?
Because Bitcoin is in the architecture of it is set in stone. You can't change it without breaking the whole code. So it's encrypted by 256-bit security, and that encryption is very hard to break. No one's been able to hack Bitcoin to date. Scientists theorize that you could hack a Bitcoin with a quantum computer, but a quantum computer at this point, we're nowhere near the technology that we need in terms of accessible quantum computing hacking. If people note, a quantum computer is usually like a massive room full of cooling to cool off this incredibly hot quantum processor. They have to use like liquid nitrogen and stuff like that in their cooling systems, but they're getting better at that technology. What I'm saying is it's not hackable at this point. And people are building technologies around Bitcoin, like the Lightning Network, to make it more efficient and faster. But they're not. It's like Bitcoin is what's called a layer one. Ethereum is a layer one. They are a technology that you can build on top of, but you really can't change the layer itself. It's already set in stone. It's part of that closed loop, that blockchain technology. And you can do things, you can create applications and build on top of it, but you can't change its core infrastructure. You can't change the language of what's been written in stone. It's like 10 commandments of technology.
Okay, that's really interesting, because in your documentary, a few times you mentioned that it's hack proof. And I mean, I'm an outsider looking in. I'm not trying to poke holes in your documentary. It's just, to me, when I hear hack proof, it's like, yet, yeah, we're already kind of in a cyber war with Russia and China and who else knows who, our own government. We don't know. But it just seems like if someone can build it, someone can unbuild it. But I guess what you're saying is maybe eventually, but as long as they keep updating the security.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it could be hackable. Like I said, quantum computers have been pointed to being the strongest candidate for that. But how many, we don't have a lot of quantum computers. Again, we're like just at the precipice of that technology, and you need a quantum hacker on top of that. So it's like, I don't know. It's not likely. But yeah, the more common thing that's happened in crypto when it comes to heists, hacks, and people losing their money are rug pulls, which are where these companies that are kind of like startups, like I said, they're businesses that create a blockchain technology currency, and they're offering that security to you to invest in. Once they make all this money off of you investing, some of these, nefarious folks get a little greedy, and they commit what's called a rug pull, and they just pull the liquidity out of the cryptocurrency. They essentially steal the value, steal the money, and convert it to fiat or something on their side. Or a hacker comes along and steals a chunk of the currency. We have no idea if that hacker was a true individual, or if maybe they came in and swindled that money from given some kind of access by the crypto developer themselves,
That
just
makes
to make
sense,
sure
yeah.
to make them look innocent. I mean, that's how my logical sort of skeptical mind works. I'm sure we'll find out with time if some of these heists were done by legit hackers, or hackers that were pretty much kind of contracted to come in and take some of that money, and they get a split. But the cool thing about blockchain technology is that it's an open ledger, meaning almost all of the transactions, you can go to like a site called Etherscan, right? And you can put in a Ether wallet address into Etherscan. And when you hit enter, you can see all of the transactions since the, first Ether hit that wallet, and where money is going to other wallets and where money is coming from. So there's a real transparency in this technology. As an open ledger, anybody can see all of the transactions that are happening online if they're smart enough and they go looking. There are technologies to sort of hide that, and those technologies are completely illegal. It's like basically hiding the transactions, and those will be outlawed. I'm pretty sure eventually you'll have agencies like the FBI and other 3-letter agencies going after them. But for the most part, the open ledger is a step in the right direction, because a bank is not an open ledger. It's a private institution that hosts these transactions, and you don't have any right to look into other people's transactions. They're private, right?
Right.
So if a hacker doesn't really cover their tracks well, you can actually watch the transactions as they move, where they originated from, where they go to. So there's some help there.
As far as a little while ago, you had mentioned that it's very possible, maybe even likely, stop me if I'm putting words in your mouth, that the U.S. government would switch to some kind of digital currency as their backing, because we've been off the gold standard forever, so we don't have that. What's stopping the government? Say Bitcoin rallies, or when it rallies, because it seems like it always does, and people are putting a lot more money into it than ever. Could the U.S. government just come in and say, Bitcoin's no longer a thing, now you're doing our thing?
They could, but they haven't. If anything, they've made a lot of inroads into supporting Bitcoin, because the United States is still a capitalist society, and that's one of the freedoms that attracts so many people to come and live in the United States, right? Or any other free nation, kind of like Canada or the UK, right? You don't want to stifle innovation like that. It's like saying you can't have Facebook. Well, maybe they can't have the Novi wallet and Libra at this point, but they're still a really good social network, and they've connected people like they've never, socially, like we've never been connected online before. So there's some great value in that, and their company has created lots of jobs, and the economy is therefore flourished because of that job creation, right? The crypto industry is an awesome opportunity for job creation. You are looking at a new Silicon Valley within a Silicon Valley, right? You've got this massive amount of effort going into developing DApps, digital applications, on all these different layer 1, layer 0, layer 2 solutions for blockchain technology. And the United States government has some smart people there. The SEC has some smart people there. They want to protect fiat currency. I think they want to protect the US dollar, but they also don't want to stifle innovation where they're, putting us into a worse recession, right? Right now, we're headed towards a recession because of inflation. Everything becomes so expensive. They start raising the interest rates for loans, and the interest rates become so high that it's completely unattainable for somebody like you and I to buy a house, get a loan on a car, get a loan on a fridge. Things like this become out of reach, and only the corporations are allowed to then borrow money. and they probably even get a couple points off of that interest rate that normal individuals would never get. At that point, you're really in a recession because people are losing their jobs. Corporations are cutting their expenses, cutting their costs as much as they can. The Fed is not printing money anymore, right? Because printing is what causes inflation. They're actually stopping printing money and raising interest rates at the same time. So you're creating this like absolute hurricane of problems. And then you've got cryptocurrency on the side being developed and all these blockchain technologies. If they put their foot down on that as well, you're stopping job creations in this new arena. And that's not good. I don't think they want to do that. I think they want to keep jobs healthy so that they can raise interest rates without knowing that they're not going to crash the economy. They want the economy to be healthy, and therefore they want job creation to flourish. And this is one of those spaces where they're watching and they want to regulate it more, but they also don't want to just stamp it out. And to your point on a central bank digital currency, this is called the CBDC in short form. There's other stable coins that are already out there, which are trying to peg their value or correlate their value of one digital coin, to the exact value of the US dollar. And good examples, because right now we're kind of going through this, what's called a depeg. We're going through depegging of some of these stable coins that are out there right now. But a good example is the USDC. That's created by a foundation called Circle. And the SEC has been working close with them. And they're pretty much regulated, and they back every USDC coin with collateral of US dollars in a fund in a bank, basically, that they keep. Then you've got other stable coins like Tether, right? And that is depegging. That is not worth 1-to-1 right now. I think it's like 94 cents or something today, which is scary. And there was a massive fallout and depegging of a coin called UST. And that was run on the Terra Foundation's network, the Terra network by Do Kwon. And they kept collateral of that in Bitcoin. The problem with that was that Bitcoin has recently been going through a correction. So as Bitcoin is dropping in value, UST was also dropping in value. And there was an exploit that was carried out. Some people believe it was possibly exploited by Citadel or BlackRock, which are essentially the same financial institution behind it all. They were doing a short, which is, a negative investment trade on UST, and they were crashing the value of UST using $100 million in funds. And you usually don't see $100 million of funds being played with on a short in the cryptocurrency market unless it's really being perpetrated by a big financial institution. So that was a really scary thing. We saw UST crash, and the Terra coin from Terra Foundation crash as well. It went from being like, I don't know, $80 or $60 per coin to less than a penny. Yeah. And so stable coins are also in a sort of a Wild West situation right now. USDC, it seems to be a more stable one because they're actually backing that with US dollars. So yeah, but I think it is apparent that the Federal Reserve and the United States is looking very heavily and investing into building their own stablecoin. Perhaps they're even interested in building their own deflationary currency, digital currency. And a deflationary digital currency is Bitcoin.
Yeah,
because
that
of
would be nice.
because of the finite amount of it that's out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's this whole world that everyone's heard of, but very few people have done as big a deep dive as you have.
Oh, I mean, I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my research that I've done independently. But if you go and you look at all these different, cryptocurrency enthusiasts that have been in the crypto industry for the past 5 years plus, guys like Ben Armstrong, who I featured in the documentary, who goes by the name of Bitboy Crypto. He has his own channel on YouTube with like 1.4 million followers. These guys have been, he comes from a traditional finance background, and they know a lot more than I know. But I come from I worked in IT for a number of years, so I was attracted to this technology when I first heard about it, and heard that it was like this new finance sort of opportunity. And I honestly, I'm grateful for having the opportunity to make this documentary, because I was able to learn so much more about just the way the world works in terms of monetary policy and how currency works. And it's actually helped me a lot as an individual grow. And I'm not going to stop learning now that I've gotten into this. And people might watch the documentary, the Bitcoin Field Guide, and find, hey, this is a good starting point for me to go learn more as well, and protect myself from future financial events and so on and so forth. Or maybe I might want to invest in some of this stuff in the future as it stabilizes. So yeah, it's a really interesting space, and there's greater minds out there that are invested, are researching, and are actually playing in this whole arena. The Michael Saylors and the bigger guys. Even Elon Musk owns over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, as far as I know. He could have sold some of it. But I think a lot of these people that are intelligent technologists, intelligent investors, are long on this technology, and long, therefore, on things like Bitcoin, because they see long term, this is going to be a place where things will recover. I don't know how well the US dollar is going to recover, or other fiat currencies.
Yeah, that's the really scary thing about what's going on right now. I don't think anybody does. Yeah. Well, I know we're running a little bit long, but if you had a few minutes about how you made the documentary itself.
Sure.
Yeah, I know we went on some tangents, but that was really interesting stuff. So what was your inspiration for making it? Were you just kind of dabbling in Bitcoin and said, okay, what's this really about?
So, to tell you the truth, I don't know if you recognize, there was a character in the film named Brian McCluskey.
I recognize the name.
He was like the guy with the long hair.
Yeah.
That was that had a apartment that he was building cryptocurrency mining machines.
Yeah, yeah.
So that sort of hippie dude, he's my friend. And when I think in 2016, 2017, when Bitcoin was initially going through this massive rise, it initially went from, people were trading Bitcoin for around $20, and then it went all the way up to $19,000 at the end of 2017, I think in December. And my friend was buying Bitcoin. I remember him saying to me, should I buy this Bitcoin thing for $1,500? And I was like, nah, don't do it. $1,500? That's a lot of money, man. Like, that sounds ridiculous. And he went against my advice and bought some Bitcoin. And I think he kept what's called dollar cost averaging in. He kept buying pieces of Bitcoin more and more as it went up. But I think overall, he was definitely negatively affected by what happened after the crash. And a couple things kind of seem to happen when these cryptocurrency booms happen. A lot of players enter the market that are not fully on board with protecting your asset and so on and so forth. So we talked about a bit of the theft thing that happened, but there were exchanges that literally shut down, that declared bankruptcy. Coinbase, for example, is an exchange. Binance is an exchange. They're platforms in which you can buy your cryptocurrency on, and you keep it in their exchange wallet online in the cloud, instead of like a physical hardware wallet that you keep like connected to your computer or on your person. You're keeping it in the cloud, and they're holding your currency for you, right? There were exchanges that were like literally crashing and shutting down and declaring bankruptcy, and people were losing their money in 2018. And all of this stuff was happening, and I was like really curious about it and really interested, because I was seeing all this money flowing in and then all this money flowing out. And we're kind of going through that right now. Like the 2018 crash is we're seeing the same sort of thing happening in 2022 play out, but the difference being now is that the actual overall economy outside of cryptocurrency is at a very precarious place. It's at a very dangerous place, because it's also, at the edge of a cliff. Mm-hmm. And so basically when I got into it, it was because a friend had told me about it. So I started researching it myself, and having worked in IT in Canada, I had met other IT sort of thought leaders in my city that I was working in. And Beier Cai is one of the guys that I interview in the documentary. Franz Chielengi, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his last name. He's interviewed in the documentary, and they started a company called First Coin Capital. And literally, they were a business that was doing ICOs, but for companies. And one of their partners initially was NVIDIA. A lot of people know NVIDIA. That's a massive chip creator, a GPU, graphics processing unit creator in Asia. But I think they have their home base in the United States. So they were doing some really interesting things on at the frontier of this cryptocurrency space in business, though. So I had my friend Brian, who was mining cryptocurrency from his home and trading it and learning about it himself on these exchanges and such, trying to create wealth. So that was like the sort of main street side of things, like people like you and I, the average Joe. And then I had friends like Beier Cai, who were running a company that was going to other major industry players and saying, would you like to create a cryptocurrency? We can develop the blockchain logic and build the currency so that all of the values and the laws are built into the coin from the onset, right? So that was really interesting. And then they actually introduced me to other companies that were working in the blockchain space. So Netcoins, I interviewed Mitch Demeter, and that is a cryptocurrency exchange in Canada. I went from there and I interviewed guys like Harris Fricker. Harris Fricker was one of the guys that was behind PayPal before it became PayPal. Before Elon Musk came along, it was called the CashX online. And this guy came from Silicon Valley, and he was investing in from a very high level, like working with basically funds and deep pocket, investors, steering them towards intelligent cryptocurrency investment plays that had a long-term plan, right? And Bitcoin is one of those that he was very bullish on when he was operating as a fund investor. And Harris Fricker, everything he said in the documentary is some of the things that I interviewed him on. I asked him in 2018, okay, and I worked on this documentary all the way up until this year, and many of those things that I interviewed people on in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, they're all still relevant. They're all still at play now. So that leads me to believe that obviously there's going to be a long-term play to the crypto space.
Very cool. Well, Darcy, thanks again for coming on. It's a very interesting documentary, and it's a good length too, but it's not like, a task to undertake, because it's very interesting and moves fast, and you cover a lot of topics. So the fact that you made it in just a few years is actually pretty impressive, because that's a lot of research.
Yeah, it took some time. I'm sure there'll be a follow up at one point.
Oh, there's going to have to be. It's a very ever evolving thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time with me today, Adam. It was good chatting with you about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you too. And is there anything you want to point people to, like your socials? I know you have a lot of stuff. You're always working on something.
On Instagram, I'm Darcy Weir Films. On Facebook, I'm just Darcy Weir. YouTube, Occult Journeys is my film studio name. And if people want to check out the film, they can watch, if they're in the States, they can watch it for absolutely free if they just go to tubitv.com. And that is a Fox streaming platform. And they can just search the Bitcoin Field Guide and watch it for free.
Oh, very cool. That's great to know.
If they're international and they're watching this, they can check it out on Apple, Amazon Prime, those types of platforms.
Awesome. Well, Darcy, thanks again, and best of luck in the future.
Thanks, Ben. Take care.
Take care. I'd like to thank Darcy one more time for coming on the show to talk to us about his newest documentary, The Bitcoin Field Guide. Once again, it's available within the United States on Tubi TV. Outside the United States, you can find it on all the major VOD platforms. Definitely recommend checking it out, and check out the other work that Darcy has done, because this guy is busy and he's always putting something out, which is very cool. Please make sure you like and subscribe. We have a lot more interviews, reviews, Amazon reviews, comic reviews, unboxings, con coverage. I'm going to have Galaxy's Edge and Wizarding World of Harry Potter coverage coming soon. A lot of cool stuff you're not going to want to miss out, so make sure you like and subscribe. I guess you hit the bell so you can get notifications when we do post stuff, and we post as regularly as possible. Speaking of not wanting to miss out, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month you get multiple monthly bonus shows. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop some in the comments, leave us something on social media. All the accounts will be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comedy comic series. It's called Social Studies. It's a slice of life, coming-of-age story. It follows a group of friends through high school dealing with all the insanity of the high school experience. We write it like a sitcom, and we draw it in our own style that is very reminiscent of the 90s cartoons that we grew up on and inspired us. You can find all of our currently available issues, and there's always more coming, at socialstudiescomic.com and on Comixology, including Comixology Unlimited, which was very exciting for us. And as of July 16th, we will be at Plastic City Comic Con in Massachusetts. So if you're in the Northeast, New England, New York area, come and check us out there, get some comics, talk comics, whatever you want to do. Thanks.